Okay, so now they're seeing desktop server.
Yes. Good morning, everyone, and thank you. While we settled a small technological difficulty, I'm the collection and library automation at the University of Michigan's KRESGE Business Administration Library. Welcome to my first KOHA presentation, but I hope will be many of you. I'm collecting finances in KOHA for new users. We did it, and you can too. A little bit about the presentation, some important points. This presentation was developed in version 17.05, and the focus of this presentation, as the title suggests, is on financials, not the entirety of the acquisitions module, but we certainly had a good discussion in the acquisitions roundtable yesterday afternoon. Screenshots in this presentation include a mix of a sample data set that I created for this presentation, as well as data from our production service. And it's most important to realize that KRESGE Library Services is a self-installed, self-maintained, and most importantly, self-taught KOHA installation. I've been working in a vacuum for over a year and a half, relying on wikis, email lists, and all sorts of other things that may or may not be accurate or up to date that I found online for the configuration and installation of our server. And when I say self, I don't mean the people at the library, I mean me. Everything begins and ends at KRESGE with me. And of course, today I offer you one way of doing things. It is our way. It's not the only way. A little bit about KRESGE. We are an independent library on the Ann Arbor campus of the University of Michigan. We are not subordinate to nor a unit of the main university library. You think U of M's library, you think 8 million plus volumes across 20 different facilities? We're none of that. We are a tiny little library with 420,000 electronic titles and exactly 156 non-circulating books with 5 annual physical receipts a year, all coming from the same vendor. 9 librarians, 11 paraprofessional staff, tech services, 3 of us, me, the librarian, and I have 2 support staff, one who works exclusively with finances, the other cataloging, and they're about to both merge into what I'm calling electronic collections administration, which will involve lots of Excel and serial solution data. Our collections budget is about $1.2 million annually, spread across 1 primary account and 6 endowed accounts. A lot of money and spend a lot of money on databases, so we only fully process about 130 invoices a year for about 160 line items. We're an innovative library for 22 years, running acquisitions in that Millennium and in a server for 20 of those years. And we actually did not migrate from Millennium to KOHA. We were unautomated for a period of around 15 months, unautomated for acquisitions for a period of 3 years, because I didn't want to start a fiscal year with my Millennium contract ending somewhere in the middle of it. We've been running production since January of 2016. Currently, we're running 17.05 on Ubuntu 14.04. When I realized that if I broke it, I'd have night sweats and terrors like you have no idea, I got a development server in place. These are both running on the University of Michigan virtualization service that they offer. And we've been running acquisitions since October of 2016 on the development server, where I developed all of this stuff, and in production in May 2017, when I finally hired somebody to replace somebody that had retired. Despite the fact that we've only been working with production since 2017, we've actually retroactively entered 3 complete years worth of fiscal data, and we are now in our 4th year with the university's fiscal year beginning on July 1st. It's actually allowed me the capability of having all of my data covered in Millennium to the end of 2014, year 2015 and on are now available in KOHA. Before you can do anything in KOHA with a file, in order, at least the order I recommend, because a lot of these follow a very logical sequence, system global preferences, followed by the creation of any desired statistical categories. Finally, create a budget and then funds within that budget, as well as any hierarchies you'd like, then allocate the funds to it. Note that the various permissions required to do these setups are usually found in the administration set of funds. Day-to-day work is all handled by various acquisitions options, but this part is in administration. You have to define at least one active currency. The university tells any currency other than the US dollar to take a hike, so we only have one currency. However, if you run the web installer, you may have actually recalled the option that you set up a number of default currencies by selecting that option. Or home administration's currencies and define them there. If you are not aware, please do be aware that if you enter foreign currencies, you must keep your rates current manually. There is no automated way that I am aware of to automatically update and improve the accuracy of the exchange rates. Finally, system global preferences. A lot of these are set up here to prevent the creation of things like items because we are running acquisitions in its own koha instance. It's got the public catalog and its staff support. Acquisitions is running on its own two sets of ports. The most important of these that we feel are the one that warns about as well as the ability to do that regardless of owner and the ability for the system to warn about the basket from closed to open or open to closed. If I ever get a DDA system, the order would come into play there. 947 in the manual, if I'm remembering correctly, populate those fields to go ahead and create orders for those DDA acquisitions. Next, create any desired category. Now, start to create funds, you have the option of assigning them categories, and you need to have those categories defined before you use the funds. KRESGE Library category. The university is very interested in knowing how much money flows not out of the university, but between its departments. So one statistical category called to and from that keeps track of that, and a separate one called months cleared. We reconcile our materials account and all of our endowed accounts monthly, and I like to be able to create reports on how much money has gone out of the budget on every month because we have to file quarterly variance reports with the School of Business's Finance Office. Next, create a budget. Home administration, budgets administration, and note that you must define a budget before you can create any funds in that budget. Note that start and end dates are required, but they do not impact your ability to use the funds within that budget. Rather, the budget must be active in order for any activity to take place. Finally, you're getting to the good stuff. Hierarchies and allocating them. Always define your parent or top-level funds first, and then their children. You can always add other parent funds using the options from the new button, but note that you add child funds using the drop-downs of any desired parent fund. I've been working with this for this, and I actually got all the way down to 12 levels of children and could have kept going. I figured that was more than enough for anybody. If you've got that many levels, well, you probably have bigger problems to worry about than any you might run into. You might want to consider access to certain funds, particularly your parent funds. We do not expend any money out of the parent funds themselves. Rather, the parent funds are merely placeholders for all of the activity that takes place in the children. What I've done at KRESGE is I defined myself as the owner of all of the parent funds. I've restricted access to the parent funds to me, myself, and I, which is one of the options available. That protects one of my staff from accidentally including a parent fund within one of its order record creations. Note that if you do want restrictions of any sort against your funds, you must define an owner for the fund in order for those restrictions to mean anything. You will want to consider the categories carefully as you are defining your funds to allow for apples-to-apples comparisons between your funds. Those two statistical categories I pointed out of to from and months cleared, we use those same two statistical categories for all of the funds within our system. And be very careful in the naming of your child funds. Be alert that fund name, not fund code, displays in the order. If you have books, it's a sub-fund in a number of different parents, all you're going to see in your orders is books. Fun. Fun? No. No? No. So do yourself a favor. Materials books, shoemaker books, gift books. Do yourself a favor and put that detail in your fund name so that you know what you're getting into. Be careful with allocations. You can enter allocations as you are creating the funds. Note that you can only use numbers and decimal points in the box where you insert funding rather. And so the two important things, the total of all top-level allocations cannot place in the budget total amount. That is to say, the amount you inserted in the budget when you were creating it or when you were modifying that budget. Attempting to do so will give you a nasty pop-up that says fund amount exceeds parent allocation. Some of all the children funds of any given parent fund cannot exceed the corresponding parent allocation. You will get that same nasty pop-up box. So you've created everything. What does it look like? It depends on where you are in the system. If you have acquisitions ready, if you are home, what you will see. Here are all of the funds listed. Of course, I haven't done anything yet except appropriate money to them. There's a box at the very bottom, a total display. The funds that will display for any given user will vary based on their user permissions and the permissions set for the funds in the budget. Total bar that you see down here at the bottom will be very misleading to absolutely everybody in your library. So it is recommended that you turn off that total display using readily available, and the first thing I found in the user manual when I was trying to figure out, oh my God, I want to get rid of it. I didn't have to go any further for the user manual, and it was nice to be able to say that for once. If you have administrative authority and you budgets, you'll notice this display is a little different. There are a few things here called base level. Base level allocations, base level totals, and base level ordered. Base level, whenever you see that phrase, refers to that particular fund only and does not involve the activity of any of the children. For me, because of the way I've got my budget set up and don't let anybody place at that top level, you will only see a base level allocation, but you will never see a base level ordered or base level available or base level spent because you cannot select that. Total ordered and total spent add up, as we'll see in just a little bit. All right, I'm ready to go. Well, no, not quite. You need to know about the acquisitions hierarchy. Vendors are the center of the KOHA acquisitions universe. You can't do anything without a vendor. Baskets hold our orders. Baskets are created within vendors. Finally, orders are created in baskets, and note that orders are linked to catalog or bid records, which can come from various sources. Once you are at that point, your funds can be properly encumbered. And finally, you can't create an invoice without also receiving an order. This was vastly different for us with 20 years of Millennium experience. Vendors to us were a complete and total afterthought. We paid no regard to vendor statistics. Back in 1994, but you know what? We rarely used them. You could have vendor of none and no vendor less. Here, it's important that we have going forward. So, how do you create vendor records? Vendor button. You can fill in all kinds of details here, but note that it's the only field you really need, and it's also the only required field. When you create a vendor, must be active in order for you to do anything else with it. We'll immediately have the option to create a basket for that vendor. Note that there are several different ways in which you can create baskets. When you are creating a basket, the only required basket is the basket. Wow, was that circular or what? Note that you have an option to by default, select the vendor in which you click on the basket. For financial purposes, the selection of billing and delivery do not matter, although it does default to the library in which you are currently logged in using. And by default, baskets will hold firm orders. Most people will only create firm orders. By default, baskets will hold firm orders, which means that when you are done with that basket, you close it in order to be able to use them. A single basket cannot contain both firms and standing orders. They are like fire and water, only without the dangerous consequences. Creating baskets. This is what the Create Basket screen looks like. Work in acquisitions in Koha, you are familiar with it. There's that tiny little checkbox that determines your fate with standing orders. Fortunately, you can always go in and edit the basket if you select it. After you create a basket, you have the option of creating an order for that basket. Come from a number of different sources. Box. I'll talk about existing records, 950, and manually records. Go ahead and select that existing record option. Most people, I imagine, might just do a keyword search, but note that the traditional local Koha Biblial number are available for your use here. Have the ability to view that NARC record to make sure it is the one you want, and if it is, you can go ahead and click on Order at the far right side of the screen. With the new record option, I couldn't find anything in my system, so I'd like to go ahead and create a brief bib record. We have a number of different fields here, the only one of which is required title. Note that the mappings for these fields are preset. I would imagine it's going to be going to the code. 45 into the title, ISBN, and 21020, etc. Finally, external source. Catalog. If you are an OCLC user and you have Z3950 cataloging in your cataloging subscription, you can set that up as well. Go ahead and select your sources into your search. You have the ability to view my as well, and of course the ability to order. All roads lead to Rome, and you point where you are ready to enter your order data. Note that only the quantity and fund are required fields. If you are interested in providing encumbering amounts, you can put the price within the vendor price field. Entering the vendor price and leaving all of the rest of the information blank except quantity will pre-populate replacement cost, budget cost, and total. I recommend, because quite honestly I haven't figured out the purpose for it, do not select uncertain price. I'm like, oh, this can be the place where I say, well, I don't know that this is the price, and maybe it'll give me a little wiggle room. Actually, nothing could be further from the truth. If you have uncertain price marked with any of your orders within a single basket, you can't close the basket. If you can't close the basket, you can't receive orders, and nobody can join the last thing you will want to consider, remember those statistics? When you select be to statistical values and you creating an order. At first, those two fields are blank, but when you select a fund, it references the funds table and says, oh yeah, these are the two statistical categories you want for these. It goes ahead and populates them at that point in time. So this is what a create orders screen looks like. I like the fact that it defaults to quantity 0, are not accidentally creating things. And finally, you can click on save and you've got a complete order in a basket linked to a vendor. So you keep going and you keep going and you keep going. Once you've created all your firm orders in that basket, make sure to go ahead and close it using the appropriate drop down. And before too long, you've got lots of vendors and lots of orders within all of them. What does this all look like? On the funds and budgets side, we're looking at acquisitions. So this is the funds side. It's a simple calculation. Amount, which is your appropriation or your allocation, minus ordered, minus spent equals total available. If you've encumbered any funds, all of those funds will now be summarized in the ordered area. Ordered and spent are actually linked to your system if you're working within acquisitions. You can click on that. Amount. On the budget side, parent-children relationships that we talked about before are now a little bit more fully exploited. All of the base level ordered figures for a parent and its children will add up to total order. Similarly, all of the base level spent for a parent and its children will equal total spent. At first, this was a very confusing display to me. And it took me my looking at this and said, what does this mean? I said, why are you asking me? I'm looking at this for the first time just like you. Well, we thought together this presentation with a course that was just I kept on pushing off because quite honestly, it didn't affect me and all of the numbers were 0, so I was happy. But the same math applies across any given fund, parent or child. Allocation minus total ordered minus total spent equals total available. Base level allocated minus base level ordered minus base level spent equals base level available. So maybe you get a shipment. You open it up. What do you do? I'll skip the overview because I'll just be talking about all of these in detail. I got a shipment from Amazon. Go ahead and search for that vendor in acquisitions and click on receive shipment for the vendor. You'll enter invoice information, check in items for receipt for all of the items, and then finalize that invoice. Note when you're searching for vendors, you type in AM, you'll get Amazon, you'll get American Test Kitchen, but you'll also get anything with AM right next to each other anywhere within your vendor records. If you want to bring up all of your vendors, leave the box empty. Click on Receive Shipment for the appropriate vendor, and then your basic invoice information like receipt date of the invoice as well as an invoice number. We'll see a display that has all of the invoices you've paid for that vendor. Additional searching on those where the duplicate invoice check comes in handy. If you type in an invoice number and it finds a duplicate, it's going to let you know, and it'll ask you if you want to reopen that invoice or create a new one. You'll also see additional filtering options on the left side of the screen as seen here. This is from our production server. We've got 40 total invoices paid for ProQuest. Go ahead and receive your items. When you click on Receive Shipment, you are not by basket. You're searching for all open orders across that vendor. Go ahead and scroll through your here And when you found one that matches, you can click on Receive. You will probably have, if you got enough volume, hundreds of outstanding orders for any given vendor. Fortunately for you, results to something more meaningful. Found the thing you want, you can go ahead and click on it. You're now in the receipt screen where you will select the number of copies. Now set the actual cost, that is to say, reflected on the invoice. You're not entering here the total cost of all the copies received, rather the cost of one single copy. One receipt times that actual cost should equal the line item on the invoice. Rather rinse repeat. Within your shipment, you will note that as you receive items, they disappear at the bottom of the screen under Already Received. At the very bottom of that screen is a summary, subtotaled by fund for all of your receipts. Do yourself a very big favor and confirm that invoice total before you say, okay, I'm done, and click on Finish. Finally, you will get the chance to close that. Confirm your earlier entered invoice details, including the number, the shipment date, the costs, and the shipment fund, if you set them, and enter the invoice date to the billing date field. Confirm that invoice total, including any tax shipping, and if everything's all set, you can go ahead and select Close to finalize and save that invoice. What happens in the funds and budget side? Guess what? Unencumbered funds. The amount of funds unencumbered is decreased by the vendor price times the quantity received. Similarly, spent fund increases by the actual cost times the quantity received. Like any proper encumberancing system, the net effect against encumbered funds for a that got people in innovative land into big trouble when it came to cereal. What happens to the basket? All of its pending orders received will no longer be listed because there are no more pending orders. Item, biblio, and item expected counts are dynamically updated. That outstanding orders, the numbers will reflect the fact that there are outstanding orders, but the pending orders will not be included within those counts. You can view a basket for more details. Note that has been received. Took me I'm like, how do I know it's been received? That's not very clear and legible. But there it is at the very front of the title. RCVD, and you can actually sort RCVD, just what's been received or what's outstanding. Let's talk more about invoices. Koha does a great job in allowing here in this example, I searched for the word handbook. It will go ahead and search all of my invoices for the word handbook, and it actually found a number of different results. It gives you title counts and piece counts. Guess what? Those aren't the piece counts for the entire invoice. That's just the title counts for the number of the number of line items in that invoice that have that word. So I selected one that had 4. It's a good way to show you, hey, this is what an invoice looks like if you want to look at it after it's been paid. And the word handbook is in that invoice 4 separate times. So here you've got actual cost reflected, quantity, the total cost, as well as the fund associated with them. Very nice display here. This is going to be a very dynamic screen. Some of your vendors will be active but will not have any pending orders. They will simply tell you, no pending basket. The vendors are not inactive. They're still very much there. It's just that they don't have any outstanding orders on them. How can you tell by looking at this screen what close basket, what no basket? You don't have the ability to close the basket. How do I know? And it took me about a day or two to say. Oh yeah, the add to basket thing probably has something. Your one way of looking at this screen to tell you whether a basket is open or closed. So now I've spent a whole bunch of money. What does it look like now? I've still got my allotted amounts. My ordered amounts have gone down appropriately by the number of encumbrances and copies that I've received, but my spent figure has also appropriately increased, not by the encumbered amounts, but by the amounts I've actually entered on my invoices. The top part, of course, is the view and acquisitions on the fund side. The bottom view is the budget side, and there's that relationship of adding up all the allocations for a parent and its children, and its reflection in the total ordered and total spent amounts. Keep in mind that if a fund has no children, the base level calculations will be identical. Click on that number within acquisition. These are all of the things I've spent. I like the fact that it gives me a subtotal for the books. I like the fact that it itemizes all of these shipping charges. I don't like the fact that it doesn't give me a shipping subtotal. I look at this and say, maybe I want to create a separate fund for shipping, make it a child of this book's parent fund. And because of the way base level allocations and all of that works, then I can get the subtotal for that, and everything would be as I would want it to be. So what about standing orders? Were introduced in 1605. Until that happened, with 99.9% of my money going out to databases and a handful of print firm orders, I'm not going to have my staff create a new order every year. Standing orders in 1605 fixed that for us. A standing order is not just received once. It can be received over and over again, order created upon receipt of an additional volume. Note that only the order creation is different. The vendors of the catalog records and the orders themselves is no different, but that checkbox, orders are standing, that's what you need to remember to select. Do not close a standing order basket. You do close firm order baskets, standing order baskets. I said it before, cannot coexist in the same basket. And you don't want to actually close your standing order basket until cancellation and receipt of all items in that basket's orders. We've actually canceled a few things. I put them all aside. I'm canceling them. That we're not accidentally checking in an invoice, if you will, for something that we are no longer supposed to be getting. Because how many of us have received invoices for things we canceled with the vendor hoping, oh, it's their operation, they'll pay it. KRESGE. Most of our standing orders are for electronic resources, and we actually create a separate basket for each database under each vendor. That allows us the opportunity to see in one place a history of expenditures for that database. We loved the payments tab in Millennium because Millennium provided that. The way that we are able to do this, same support, koha. That very first order record you key, which is the parent, specially marked with an internal note that says master standing order record, and specially create statistical categories so that it doesn't end up mucking up my report counts or the values for those reports. It also has no vendor price set. We do not encumber these amounts. I've got a separate method that is actually a carryover from the 3 years I didn't have any automation to provide my myself and my director with a series of encumbered values. Keep in mind that when you receive a standing order, it ends up in the same basket as the parent and does get that same received notation that the firms get. We do things, this is the one thing I don't really like about our way around it yet. When we reconcile our books monthly, we go back and edit the standing orders. Baskets do not display actual cost. I don't know why, it just is. So what we do is after an order is received and after it's cleared, we go back into that receipt and make the vendor price the actual price. You're thinking, you just set yourself up to encumber. Well, actually, no, we didn't. As long as the actual cost is already set, which is reconciled, putting anything in vendor price does not encumber any funds at all. It is also at this point that we change categories to what we want them to. You do not do that at receipt, because if you do that at receipt, you inadvertently not the statistical category, but of your master standing order record. We don't want to do that. And that's actually true of statistical categories. Firms set them at the point of order. We're trying to do things after the fact here, and that tells me that this is not the way to do it. Standing order, I can go in and not have to reopen all things. It works okay, even if it's not the best. But for firm orders, that's what you have to do. You got to reopen the basket, then you got to make the payment, then you got to close the basket again, then you got to remember to close it. It's just what do standing orders at KRESGE look like? This is for one of our databases. It actually has two master standing order records because there are funds that we paid for and one for material. I love having all of this information in a single area. I thought I could get this. I wouldn't say it was a love fest, but acquisitions and I started to get along a lot better. Standing orders, these are our print basket. We have one print basket because all 5 of our standing orders that are all annual come from EBSCO. You have the ability to search and want to call up all my master standing orders? There they all are. What about wine handbook? And boy, right now, I don't care that it's only 11 o'clock in the morning. Oh my God, did I just do for wine? These are all the wine handbook. So this is very similar to the same database display like what I just showed you, but there's one very important difference, one that I hope to see improved. There's my search for wine. I've only got 5 records displayed. One of them is the master standing order. The count doesn't change. The total does not change. It would be great. I won't talk about fiscal close and open because we are out of time, but let me tell you, we can talk about it afterwards. You want a required manual confirmation of invoice total. Millennium libraries, I know you're here. That makes you type in a number. You typed in the number. The number you typed matches all of the entries. You didn't do that in Millennium. You want to see that here. We also want invoice totals in the invoice display. There is no invoice total in the invoices table. So when you call up an invoice or you call up a group of invoices, you don't see the total. How can you have an invoice display and not see the total right there on the screen? I think would go hand in hand with each other. You want to see a better way to handle allocations. Most funds, or a lot of libraries, we get quarterly income. We need to account for that, and just going into the fund and changing the appropriation is not good bookkeeping. It's terrible bookkeeping. Display of actual cost in baskets. Great job on order. Once they're received, it's like they don't matter anymore, but they really should be received. Set firm order statistics at time of receipt, and any order more than 1 per basket. Guess what? what? I've had 10 vendors change their name in 4 years. What if I call up an old invoice? I can't find it under the Standard & Poor's anymore because I had to change the vendor name to S&P Capital IQ. I know that. My staff might not. Having more than one vendor field and the ability to search all of them will help in support of standing orders. Outside because I've got an angry mob forming outside here. I've got business cards and I will be here the rest of the course of the next. I have it. Thank you for your time and attention.